and welcome to This is USG, a video podcast by the universities at Shady Grove. 9 universities, 1 campus, great results. I'm Khademian, Executive Director of USG. With 209 schools, 160,000 plus students, 25,000 employees, and about a $3 billion budget, the role of superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools is probably one of the most important and challenging CEO jobs anywhere from any industry. MCPS is one of the nation's largest and most diverse and renowned school districts. My guest today is an exceptional partner in education here in Montgomery County, MCPS's new superintendent of schools, Dr. Monifa McKnight. Dr. McKnight, welcome to This is USG.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. I wonder if we could start with a little bit of your own personal background and history. You have an amazing, remarkable career, a remarkable trajectory from teacher to all kinds of leadership positions that have taken you to this role as well today. But I wonder if you could step back for us a little bit and share why education, and what was it about your background that inspired you to serve and to lead in the education space?
Oh, sure. I love telling this story because I kind of stumbled upon education. I was not one who, although I did play teacher when I was young with my make-believe classroom, I went into college thinking that I wanted to do marketing, something that helped broadcast the image of companies, those types of things that I thought would be fun and that I would enjoy. However, when I was in college, I saw many of my colleagues and peers who were in the education department that just seemed to enjoy going to their classes and doing the work and participating in what we call pre-step at the time, which was to visit schools and observe teachers and see what they were doing in the classrooms. And so it got my attention. And so I decided to take an education class, and I fell in love with education since then. Enjoyed all of the courses, put my heart and soul into every assignment that was given. And that's when I knew that I found a career that I just enjoyed. And from the first moment that I went in to observe a classroom when I was in college, and seeing the teacher and seeing how impressionable young people are, and at this time it was a group of 3rd graders that I started out with, and working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and just seeing how powerful the relationship was between a teacher and a student. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to education, loved teaching. Actually, now as a superintendent, I still love teaching. It's something that it's just a part of you. As you become an educator, you see the value and know the importance of helping and supporting someone else through that process of teaching and learning. And so I just stayed in education. I, of course, moved through the ranks, and others saw leadership skills in me early on in my career and encouraged me to take on that leadership, whether it was leading the department of teachers, and then from there, teaching professional learning to entire school staffs about how to craft the pedagogy and all of the things to make sure the classroom experience was a meaningful one for students. And then as I became a principal, a district leader, a superintendent here now in Montgomery County, I still see a lot of the value in teaching. Some of my best days are our A&S meetings, in which I actually have an opportunity to share a vision and talk with the staff and the entire system about how we're going to accomplish our vision, and how that vision has to always start with what we want to occur in that classroom, and in that school, between the student and the teacher, and the student and all other staff members. And so here I am sitting as a superintendent, very much understanding the value of the relationship between teachers and students, and wanting to do everything within my power and working with others to make sure that's a meaningful relationship, and one that allows our students to grow and become whoever they want to be in life.
That's fantastic. It all comes down to the teacher and the student, and focusing on the student. It's wonderful. In your story, I hear 2 things that are really interesting. One is that you got exposed to teaching early on. You got exposed to education early on, and a chance to think about what that would mean professionally. And I think that experience, that opportunity to see something, to understand what it means to follow that path is so important. I wonder if you can say a little bit more about that. And also you focused on people who believed in you along the way. And so the importance of mentors. who can just uplift, open a door, encourage, is so important. I mean, I think there's so many mentors that I've had in my life who have been so important. And I wonder if you could speak to both of those points, both the experience that you had, the exposure to what a teaching profession could be like, and also the importance of mentors.
Sure. So exposure to what that teaching profession should be like. I tell you, I started my career teaching at a magnet school for math, science, and technology. And we had a different schedule at the time. We were a school that had school 5 days a week, but on Wednesdays, the students were dismissed early. And so half of the day was used for teachers to have professional development. So it was my first year of teaching in which I understood the importance of that professional development time, and for time for teachers to have that collaboration with one another, with other partners who were going to be instrumental in bringing career work, making it live for the students in the classroom as it related to curriculum and instruction, the power of partnerships, and then again, just sitting with those who were dedicated to making sure the students in that classroom were successful beyond the teacher. And so that's why you see a strong level of commitment to this day to ensuring that as an educator, we're supporting our teachers to get that professional learning, because to me, that's one of the most pivotal opportunities for a teacher to be able to grow, and on a regular basis. And who wants to continue to be in a profession in which you're growing and learning, and you have the support of a community of colleagues around you to help you become the best that you can be? And so that was one lesson I learned early on, that created the focus on professional development that I think is a highly valuable part of a teacher's career to this day. And especially at a time in which we have to think about everything that a teacher needs and wants to continue to be a teacher, best teacher for our students over time. And so that having that professional support was always very important to me. In terms of inspiration and mentorship, it is so, so, so important. And it starts from being able to see others who enjoy what they do and who are willing to invest in you to be successful. And so as a new teacher, I'll never forget I had a mentor my first year. Her name was Ruth. And she would come to my classroom often and I could see in her that she was a teacher who cared about her students and wanted the absolute best. So of course, as a mentor, she instilled those same values in me in our conversations, and why it was important to be creative, to think about what you would do for the student who wasn't being successful. And so of course, that inspired me to be that kind of teacher for my students. And so that was my first step, I would say, in mentorship. And then that has continued throughout my entire career. As I was a teacher, I worked with my colleagues, and we would often see values in one another. Like, oh, this teacher, you're doing very good in this area. Let me see what I can learn from you to become better. Or go and observing teachers teaching their classroom. And then as I continue to move through the ranks of teaching, I had principals say, we really see you having leadership skills. Do you mind doing a workshop with this department? And then that moved into, do you mind working with the larger staff to do this? So important for you to have those mentorship relationships, because those are people who can tell you what they see you doing really well. Same people who can also tell you where they see opportunities of growth. And so knowing what you do really well may lead into you observing early on your natural areas of strength, but also knowing how you want to balance that out with the areas where you want to spend more time to hone your skills. And so that mentorship is important, always getting that inspiration from others who keep what's important at the forefront for educators or whomever it may be is really important. And I sit here as an African-American female who was also a teacher, and I'll never forget one of my students. I'll never forget their names. And this is the thing about an educator. When you have really impactful experiences, you never forget the names. And I had a student in my classroom my first year, her name was Carla, who wrote a reflection in the classroom one day. And she was just saying how grateful she was that I was her first African-American teacher. And she was so happy to have me, and that she too wanted to be a teacher, because she did not see people who were doing professional things in her family or in her environment or in her community. And so she looked up to me for that reason. I mean, that was mind-blowing to me. to realize that I was providing inspiration in an area in which I wasn't even trying to do that. But it highlighted very important to me, it highlighted to me early on how important it is that students also see representation and that they see others modeling who they want to become or could become. And so again, that's why that inspiration and mentorship is really important.
Yeah, what a fantastic story and great insight, and hopefully inspiring all of us to think about the role we play as mentors and as learners. That's wonderful. You know, you took the interim job in the middle of COVID, and COVID has been such a challenge for everybody. And I admire many things about your leadership, Dr. McKnight, but the thing that really stands out for me is your laser focus on what I've heard you say, our shared intention, which is the well-being of our children. And you know, I think if there's a core theme that runs throughout everything that you've done throughout the pandemic and you know, throughout your leadership time, it is all about the children. It is all about the students and all about the children. And I wonder if you could, you know, just reflect on that for us a little bit about how that guides you and inspires you. You know, we talk a lot about values-driven leadership, and, you know, clearly this is your core premise and your core value. So how does that laser focus and that shared intention, which brings people together all across a lot of challenges and a lot of differences, how does that guide you? How does that inspire you? Could you say more about that?
I will. Yes, I did not come into this role as an easy time in the middle of a pandemic, but I also say that it is during our most challenging moments that it is up to us as leaders to see the opportunity, because we can't ever stay in a challenging time forever. So that means we have to be able to project and see the vision of what can become as a result of that challenge to make the circumstances, the situation better. And where's their opportunity? And with that, I will say I'm grateful to be serving as the superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools at this time, because we've learned so much over the past year about ways to become innovative in ways that weren't as easy to transition into in the places of education. We've also learned a lot more about how we can move into the future in so many different ways, whether it may be programs that we should embrace because we've seen so much more happen in our world using, and I like to go to more artificial intelligence and technology in ways that we had not before utilized them. Well, what does that mean for us now? And what does it mean for the skills that our students are going to need in the future? And how do they get access to those skills early on, right now? And how does that happen in the classroom? So I see all of that as an opportunity for us as a school system to move forward. The well-being piece is so important to all of us. And I can say that confidently as a superintendent because I hear from our students and I hear from our families and I hear from my colleagues like you, Dr. Khademian, all the time, that the wellness part of what we're managing right now has to be at the forefront, because unless our students, our entire community are a well community, then we are unable to thrive in initiatives and being innovative because something's holding us back and there's something happening inside of us that's holding us back. So that can't be where we stay. And so it was very easy to come in with a vision to say, yes, in the focus of prospering as a school system where we put students first, there are 3 clear components that we're going to have to focus in as a result of COVID-19 that will help move us forward. Rebuilding relationships and trust. Second, focusing on well-being spaces for students and staff so that they can be well. And third, returning to equitable teaching and learning. And you see well-being right at the center of that, because in order for the other 2 to happen, that means that we have to be a part of a well community. So that means, yes, in our schools, in our homes, and in our community. That, you know, the conversation has to happen in all of these places. And so we as a community, and this is a strength of our community in Montgomery County, to be able to look at a problem and tackle it from all sides, schools, community, development, higher education, and say, what is the component that is a part of our responsibility individually and collectively that creates to us creating a well community. And so I know that we're going to get there because this is at the top of everyone's mind. And we're seeing in so many different ways locally across the nation why this priority of taking care of the social emotional wellness of the children, of the adults who interact with them, the wellness of the families that are in the homes that these students live in are taking care of themselves first. And so I am so, it's a daunting task in front of us, but I am excited that we are who we are in Montgomery County, because this is the same message that I'm not only hearing from all of the other agencies, but I'm also seeing us partner in so many different ways around how we're working on this issue of wellness. Department of Health and Human Services, higher education, families, faith-based organizations, other community organizations, all focusing in on providing services in so many different ways to make sure that we're all adding to that. And so as a well community, yes, we are going to continue to build trust and relationships and how we work with one another to focus on how we're going to solve a problem and thrive and become better than we were before. And when we're well and we're communicating in very proactive and productive ways, then yes, equitable teaching and learning is going to be so much more easier to achieve because we're working within a community that's much more connected than it had been. And so as I think about the connection between these three priorities, the connection is clearly there. One's dependent on the other. And again, in partnership with so many organizations within our county, I know that this is something that we all have been focused, planning and implementing so many initiatives around. And for that, I'm again grateful to be a part of a community who sees this as a priority, not within just the school system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This weekend was a really exciting time. You celebrated the opening of the Ignite Hub, this wonderful space of innovation where students are learning to code and to create their own apps. And we saw some of these amazing apps that the students have developed, that go to the heart of wellness and, their own well-being. And it was so interesting. And I think, just creating that space where, yes, there's a lot of support and a lot of resources and a lot of structure that needs to be there for wellness, but there also needs to be this space for creativity and for, listening to our students and having them, kind of let us know where they are. And I was just really impressed with how this Ignite Hub is an example of empowering students and their voices in this process as well. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the Ignite Hub. It's a wonderful initiative and so exciting.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Khademian, for bringing that up because it was indeed a celebration. I tell you, we started planning for an opportunity like the Ignite Hub. Did not know that it would be a hub, didn't know that it would have the name as Ignite Hub, but we know we wanted to create some type of partnership across agencies in Montgomery County, again, because that's our superpower with higher education, the school system, MCPS, with county government. And we wanted to be able to have a space where our students were engaged, teachers were engaged, community members were engaged, and how we were going to solve problems within our community. And what you and I and many others saw on Saturday was our students leading the effort in doing that through creating prototypes of apps. And to mention one specifically, we were just talking about the importance of wellness. How heartwarming was it to see some of our students, and one of the prototypes of many that we saw was focused on that wellness and how intuitive our students were in thinking about how to create an app that students use to give them a way to express their emotion and to be able to share it with others, like their counselors within their schools, to say, this is how I'm feeling, to be able to track overall, did I have an up or down week in terms of how I was feeling? Was I pretty consistent? If something was bothering me, what was it? Do I want to take the time to type it out? Do I want to speak it out? And again, most importantly, who can help me with this issue? Our students came up with that. One of my teammates and I were reflecting afterwards, and we were saying, a big part of what we do is plan the strategic plan for our system, along with community members and Board of Education. But in those goals, we need to bring our students in to be a part of how do you see us implementing programs, or what needs to be developed to measure these goals from the voice of the students? Because clearly what we saw on Saturday at the opening and the launching of the Ignite Hub, and the power and the skills, the student empowerment, the skills, the confidence, the knowledge that our students bring to wanting to solve problems in their community is real. And so whether that forms into them solving a problem for MCPS, solving a problem within Montgomery County, or ultimately leading into them being entrepreneurs who are establishing businesses, there's always space in a community for our students and others to come together to do just that. So it indeed was exciting. And what was also a very proud moment was it also showed how, when we come together as partners in Montgomery County, we can make really true, meaningful opportunities occur for our community. And so here we were at Montgomery College, MCPS, county government, working together, and all starting from the idea of middle school students going into a summer coding camp that then led to, how can we make this an opportunity that all students, Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, USG, families can come in and say, we want to come to a place in our community that helps us solve problems, and whether it's an app or coming up with a business plan or whatever it may be, there's that space. So it was so exciting. I hated to leave the last people there, because it was just rejuvenating. And I will tell you, what was also most rewarding was walking out of that hub and seeing our students out in the lobby area, just laughing, smiling, hugging, dancing, celebrating the fact that they had an opportunity to highlight their skills, in a way that the entire community could see and that they were able to showcase. And so it highlighted, I'm sure for them, that as a student, you can actually lead. And this is the way to do it. So it was just so rewarding.
Well, it was a blast. And I think the Ignite Hub is a great, as you say, example of the superpower of Montgomery County, which is collaboration, working together, partnership. We've, together with Dr. Jermaine Williams, who's the president of Montgomery College, we've been talking a lot about the educational ecosystem and where does this go, and how do we go from the strength of our individual institutions to thinking about where are those spaces where we can collaborate more together across the institutions, thinking about, from K to J and beyond, and what that looks like. And I'm very excited about the work that we can do together in this space. And I wonder, from your leadership position at MCPS, can you talk a bit about the educational ecosystem, and in a big way, like, why is it important, and why should public schools and community colleges and universities work together in order to make this possible? I think centering the student seems to me to be the key for all of this. But I wonder if you could speak to how you see the educational ecosystem's importance in Montgomery County.
Oh, sure. I'm so proud that we made the first step in showing how committed we were to this educational ecosystem by writing together that MOU, in which that was our commitment as MCPS, higher education, economic development, saying this is important to all of us. And these are our shared outcomes and goals that we'd like to be able to accomplish together. And let's document that and write out and show our commitment to what this is going to look like. So I say that as a proud first step in the work that we did, that got us going in the right direction, that signaled to our community this is important to us. But it's important for us to have an educational ecosystem also, because while our students come in their educational careers, pre-K to high school, we want to be able to see how we are looking beyond the schooling that happens in Montgomery County. Pre-K supports education before coming into kindergarten, and the same has to happen after our students graduate from high school, because we then want them to go into programs, whether it may be certification for programs, whether it may be an associate's degree or a four-year institution that they can have access to through USG. And we want to be able to support them through that pathway so that they can do what? Come back and be employed and community members within Montgomery County. And so when we all have that investment of educating our population and providing them with the support in so many different ways to go into the career or go to college or being community ready, whatever that may be, and providing that pathway so that they can then add to a positive economy within Montgomery County, then yes, then we're all thriving as a community. And so that's why I believe it has to exist here when we already have a shared strength around partnerships in Montgomery County. But if you were to ask me, should this exist across the nation? I would say absolutely. Because in order for any community to thrive, it has to go beyond what the school system is providing from a student from kindergarten to high school graduation. And we should all be looking at, for those students who graduate from high school, what's happening after that? And how are we making sure we're moving them in the direction to be college, career, and community ready? And that means the relationship cannot stop there. And when there are institutions that are able to support whatever those ideals are after graduation, then we want to make that pathway very easily accessible for the students. And we want to be able to support their success in those programs to come back into the community in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. And one of the programs that's been a tremendous success coming up on our 10th anniversary here is ACES, Achieving Collegiate Excellence and Success, which is a wonderful partnership with MCPS and with Montgomery College and with USG. This pathway of support and coaching and direction for students. Many students have made it through this pathway, and very successfully. And the pathway focuses on many underserved students towards success. Could you talk a little about ACES and where you see ACES going? I know we've had some conversations about what's next for ACES. Like ACES is really in its startup phase. For 10 years, it's done a fabulous job of supporting a wide range of students. What are some of the things that you see in terms of how ACES may grow and develop as an example, as a prototype, if you will, for some of the pathway work that we might be able to do together?
I could not begin to answer this question without acknowledging what ACES has been able to do within our county and in partnership with Montgomery College and USG. We've seen many students who are first-time college graduates, students who did not know that they wanted to be on a path to a continuing education path after high school, get the inspiration to do that through the support of the ACES program. And so in a county that is as diverse as ours, when I say diverse, I mean diverse racially, culturally, economically, we have to have programs such as this to be in place to make sure that we are, in fact, pursuing equity in a way that doesn't leave any group of students behind. And so for that, I'm so grateful for the program. As we look forward and continue to evaluate our programs and thinking about other opportunities, as we engage our students who are, again, first generation college students and students who are diverse in so many different ways to create that pathway for them, I see us creating those pathways and ACES to solve some of the problems that have been longstanding issues that we need to solve in terms of who do we have in what professions and what do we need more of. Like, for instance, in education, we know that it is definitely a predominantly women organization, and so we often are looking for diversity in race, but also diversity in gender. And what great way to then engage our young people early on to say, if you were to go through this pathway in this program, you're helping us solve this problem that we've been working on for decades. And as you commit to helping us solve this problem by going into these particular career tracks, what is it that we can do to support you in being successful, whether it is advocating for funding for those students because they are in fact solving problems that we're trying to solve within our community, going back to the hub and showing that we are giving that commitment to them up front so that they don't leave those programs or have challenges that sometimes we found traditionally have been roadblocks, whether that may be a lack of mentorship, whether it may be students not having the financial padding to help them not complete these programs and walk out by gaining debt, whatever those issues are, that's what we want to be able to intentionally design a pathway through use of ACEs to help solve some of those issues. And I shared one, but I could name many that we've been trying to solve in education for a while. So that's a focus that I see us having moving forward in the ACEs program.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think you're right. ACEs has done so much, and it's such an interesting model that we can scale and grow and replicate and think about the support in a wide range of other areas, even thinking about how to grow pathways around key industry clusters or key areas so that students can think holistically about their future and possibilities as well. It is very exciting.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say I gave that example because I mean, we're in such a diverse community in Montgomery County. Given the diversity of our student population, even with MCPS, why are we still having some of these issues reflecting a lack of diversity, like in some of our workforces, like education?
Exactly. Yeah.
We should think about our community and the strengths of the community, like our community being diverse, and then reflecting and saying, well, why don't we see that in spaces that we should see in Montgomery County in 2022. So I think is going to be our conduit to solving some of those issues.
Absolutely. And I think teaching and education is a place we should begin with this work. And in fact, tomorrow night, we're celebrating MCPS and MC are having the graduation ceremony for students completing early college and middle college here at USG. So we're very excited about that, to welcome everybody here to USG for that, and hope that students can see, the pathway into USG from this as well. And, middle college and early college, meaning students going in and earning both an associate's degree along the way with their high school degree. What a brilliant program. What a fantastic program. Saves time, saves money, gives students a leg up into their college experience. I think this is one area where we could really think creatively about how to grow opportunities in teaching and things as well. So that's great. Let me step back and ask you to do some kind of broader long-term reflecting as part of our wrap up here. You've shared a lot about your vision, especially coming out of COVID, but the long-term vision. You focused on collaboration, you focused on innovation and empowering students as we go forward. And this wonderful example of the Ignite Hub, as well as how students can really be a really important part of how we move forward in all of this, in the problem solving space as well. What comes next for Montgomery County Public Schools? And, what do you see as maybe, something that's really hopeful in terms of the future and where Montgomery County Public Schools are going? It's been a strenuous, really difficult time for everybody across the world in the last 2 years. And so what do you see as something exciting and hopeful that you're focused on as we come out of this time and as we're thinking about, what comes next for our students?
Absolutely. Strengthening those core priority areas is where I am looking to right now for us to make immediate impact in moving our community forward. And it truly does start there. And as we begin to do that work in our community, and as I continue to hear from our community members at the listening sessions, from our families, from our community partners, from our government agencies. And it's so great to walk into all these listening sessions because truly it's a representation of all of those groups and more that I've named. One of my favorites are community members who don't have children in the school system, but are still very invested in the success of the school system. And so hearing from them and taking the time to do that, to really then focus in on, okay, what needs to happen now within our organization so that all of our students are receiving a world-class education for them to be successful in whatever it is that they want to do in life has to be key. And I think about what's next. We want to hear from our community to decide collectively what's going to be next. If you were to ask me about some preliminary thoughts from what I've heard from community members so far, from what I know about our community here in Montgomery County, really strengthening partnerships, even to another level. As I think about our families in Montgomery County, I've heard over and over again in so many different ways, and actually in our organization as well, that sometimes when we're thinking about a family, we should think about them not just from a school system lens, but how do we make the process one in which they don't have to go to all these different places to get the services that they need? If a student wants to say, how can I get access to education beyond graduation, they can get that right there and be clear on what to do when they're in high school and not figuring that out afterwards. Same thing for families who come in and need services. Why do they need to go to another organization separately outside of the system? How do we bring all of that together cohesively so that the partnerships are working for all of our students and families? And then also, when I think about equitable teaching and learning, I've heard this in so many different ways, but making sure that we have access to programs to students across the system. For many years, we were very limited, whether it may be physical space in brick and mortar buildings or programs that everyone has to try to compete to get into. Well, I think we all ultimately want the same thing. What is going to be the education, the programming, the opportunities that makes that education a very valuable one that the student feels in the classroom, that the teacher is providing for the student, that many others are providing for that student in every school in Montgomery County. And so that's something I'm very much focused on and looking at in terms of making sure that within our entire school community, we have those robust programs and learning opportunities available to all of our students so that they're feeling prepared to go out into the world, again, to be college, career, community ready in all of our schools through programming opportunities. So I do look forward to that.
Fantastic. And I'm looking forward to the partnerships that you highlighted and the things that we can do together to really create bridges and pathways for our students across lifelong learning opportunities, starting with their magnificent experience in Montgomery County Public Schools. So Dr. McKnight, thank you so much. I know you'll continue to lead with empathy and lead with vision. And it's a real honor to speak with you today. And thank you for all you're doing for Montgomery County Public Schools and the children here.
Thank you, Dr. Khademian. It is a pleasure working with you. I like to call you the great connector. I know as we continue to work on partnerships within Montgomery County, you will be right there with me, shoulder to shoulder, making those connections as you always do so that we can continue to leverage the strength of our community. So I thank you for having me here today and giving me an opportunity to participate in this conversation with you.
Absolutely. It's great to talk with you. Take care.
Okay, thank you.